Now, welcome back to the news program. The nominee for the office of the Special Prosecutor, Jabing, has indicated that when approved, he's going to make corruption a high-cost venture in the country. According to him, he would roll out Ghana's own Corruption Perception Index to encourage state institutions to sit up. He told Parliament's Appointment Committee during his vetting at Parliament Administrative Block Committee, Room 3.
Naive to assume that I'm coming to stop corruption. There is no way I can stop corruption. God himself will not even acclaim to that. But I am going to make corruption very costly. Very, very costly to engage in terms of conflict of interest. First, I'm going to institute what I call pressure for progress. And in this quest, there will be a systemic review of all public agencies.
What was the word you...
I said I have termed it pressure for progress.
Pressure for progress.
Yes.
Very well. I thought it was a Latin word you...
No.
spoke. I didn't get it out.
I'm going to institute systemic reviews of public sector institutions and the development of integrity plans. And here, this is what I intend to do. Why can't we have our own corruption perceptions index, for instance? Why can't I rank public sector agencies against each other, and at the end of the year, publicize the results as to which institution is performing well and which institution is not performing well? In that quest, if you are head of an institution and persistently your institution is drawing the short straw in terms of the perception of corruption, from the point of view of experts, from the point of view of business people, you will set up.
Now, to his critics who say he's too young to occupy the position of Special Prosecutor, Jabing says he is even qualified to be the President of the Republic. According to him, his reputation and high depth of experience is what matters.
I'm qualified to be the President of this Republic. I am age mates with the President of the French Republic. Indeed, you should forgive me for saying this, I'm a year older than the Minister for Justice and Attorney General. We were mates at the University of Ghana and Ghana School of Law. He is the Minister for Justice and Attorney General. There's no question about his age. Why then throw issues about my age? In terms of experience, as I stated much earlier, I was called to the bar some 18 years ago. I qualified to sit on the Supreme Court of Ghana. Indeed, I'm 3 years past the qualification for Supreme Court. I have taught criminal law, especially in the University of Ghana, for 15 years, continuously. I see, if I'm not mistaken, some of my former students around this table. Honorable Member for Ejiso is my former student. Honorable Member for Madina is my former student. Honorable Member for Kaikwe Central, I was their TA in conflict of laws. These are the products of my experience. They are here, right here, for everyone to see. And, Honorable Chair, to anchor on that, I have had a front row, although I have not been a prosecutor, properly so-called. I have had a front row to landmark prosecutions in this country.
We can now speak to Sanno, who is the co-chair of Citizens Movement Against Corruption. He monitored today's proceedings keenly and has gracefully accepted to give us his thoughts about what he witnessed today. Thanks for joining us, Adam.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Now, what's your own assessment of Kissi Jabin's performance today when he appeared before the Appointments Committee of Parliament?
Well, I think he performed creditably. The substantive questions, he addressed them. Follow-up questions, I like his forthrightness, the style he chose not to engage on any previous criticism, noticeably leaving out names and comments when necessary. And I think that if this is anything to go by, obviously he was able to stand the heat of the pressure and the questions. So it's a good start.
Now, you on record to have stated that you were unconvinced about Mr. Kissi Jabin's capacity to successfully run the office of Special Prosecutor. Has that position changed or remained same after watching today's proceedings?
Well, my concern was not about capacity. I was concerned specifically about experience. There are three elements of the law that spells out the requirements he has to meet. And one of those requirements is that he should have adequate experience in the anti-corruption sector. And I felt that the information provided on his CV did not, as it were, capture sufficient experience for us to know whether he will be able to deal with the multifaceted, hydra-headed kind of corruption we face, and the likelihood that, as we say, corruption fights those who attempt to fight it, whether he would have a tough skin enough to deal with it. So that was the concern I kept highlighting. Well, to the extent that the subsequent, what do I call it, information available, number one, there has not been any finding against his integrity to the extent that he was able to adequately deal and dispose of the issue of an affiliation with the Japa issue. Would like to just, as it were, he's been given the nod, and I think we should give him the support. The days and months ahead will tell us whether that he has the tough skin enough to deal with the sector and the issues that will be thrown at him.
Did the appointment committee do a good job? Would you say that most of the questions they asked were poignant, they were on point, solid, relevant, etc.?
I think so. Right. I think that all the relevant questions were asked. And I'm always delighted when, at the end of the day, there's a bipartisan agreement, and in this case, it was a unanimous agreement that he had fared creditably and should be given the nod.
Right. Now, there's one last issue I want to raise with you, and I intend to talk to a private legal practitioner to more or less, expand on that. But let me just pick your thoughts on it. Now, and, I'll be very happy we can be brief about it. There's issues about conflict of interest, a potential conflict of interest raised by the Member of Parliament for the Asawase constituency, the Honorable Muntaka Mubarak. And that is arising out of the fact that Mr. Kissi Jabin is still a managing partner of his law firm, that's Cromwell Gray LLP. And this is a man who could potentially, that's if the president, swears him in, he becomes our special prosecutor. He doesn't, admit or doesn't want to accept the fact that there could be a potential conflict of interest because he has a private business interest. I don't know where you stand on this.
I think that the right thing for him to do is to divest himself of every interest in the firm, because the potential likelihood that some legal issue may come up, which would then put him into a potential conflict of interest. And for those of us in the space, the position is that you should not even put yourself in a position of potential conflict of interest. It is safer for him to just divest himself, resign completely from the firm.
Well,
And
he says he doesn't have any intentions of doing that. And nothing is going to actually convince him to do that. He said that. He stated that categorically.
You asked my opinion, and as somebody who's worked in good governance and anti-corruption, we've seen it happen over and over again, where people don't think that this might happen, but then you get to a situation where somehow some party that is related to an organization you're working with is connected to something, and people are concerned.
Okay.
So I think the safest thing for him to do, in spite of what he thinks, would be just to, divest himself and move on.
It's a pleasure talking to you, sir.
And thank you too.
All right, that's Adam Sanno. He's an anti-graft campaigner. Now, still staying with Kisseja Agbeng, the nominee for the office of the Special Prosecutor has refuted claims that he was a surrogate for a law firm involved in the controversial Ejapa deal. He tells Parliament's appointment committee during his vetting today, Thursday, that those making such claims are uninformed.
Whoever says I'm a surrogate of a law firm or implicates me in the Ejapa transaction clearly does not know me. Because if you know me, you wouldn't make such allegations. And so all these things that came up, I took it as coming from uninformed positions. Because I was not involved in the Ejapa transaction in any form or manner, by any stretch of the imagination, however fertile. As for relationships, as I just disclosed, the fact that I was so close to you at some point in our lives will not give you, or you not give me a free pass because of that relationship. And that is why I'm here. And if there is a matter, I'm not going to say because I know one person or the other, I'm going to give the person a free pass. I certainly will investigate. But the truth of the matter ought to be told. I wasn't involved in the deal. I was nowhere near it. Indeed, until it started coming up, I didn't even know what it was. For the record, that is the truth. And so I'm no one surrogate. As I said earlier, I'm my own man, and I prefer to wear my own shoes. If the law firm was named, it would have even been fair to me. But if you say I'm a surrogate of a law firm, clearly you don't know me. I ran my own law firm. I've been running it since 2014 as a managing partner.
Now, let me revisit the issue about the conflict of interest situation which was raised by the Member of Parliament for the Asawase constituency, that's the Honourable Muntaka Mubarak, and speak to a private legal practitioner to bring some more finality and clarity on this matter. I have been joined by lawyer Justice Abdullah. He's a private legal practitioner. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for joining us on NewsLine on Metro TV.
Good evening. Thank you so much for finally meeting you again after a long break.
Right. Now, teach us what this, concept of conflict of interest is relative to the Mr. Kisseja Agbeng private, the fact that he could potentially become the next special prosecutor, as against the fact that he's still a managing partner of a private law firm. Teach us what this means. Is there a conflict of interest situation there?
Right. So, thank you. Now, let's put it in perspective. Conflict of interest, every time it comes up, looks to identify at any point in time, as the phrase suggests, whether a person occupying a particular office is capable, because due to particular circumstances, of having the interest of something other than what his office is supposed to be focused on. And so every time this comes up, if it is possible, if it is indeed reasonable for a judgment to be made that indeed the person could have his interest conflicted with any other event or circumstances or other office or anything that is of interest to him, then it stands to reason that that person occupying that office cannot objectively deal with the issues before him. And trusted officers are officers that persons are required to ensure that their personal idiosyncrasies and biasness and preferences do not become the basis for a decision they make. Now, in the case of Kishe Ajaben, my good friend, indeed, being a private legal practitioner, potentially and naturally have dealt with several cases, some of which may be subject of the office that he is presently being considered for, or has having been considered for. And so it is indeed possible that if his office is handling some of those cases, his previous office, as in his law firm, handling some of those cases, if he takes up this additional position or new position role as a special prosecutor, the possibility of a conflict of interest scenario arising out of that would have to be looked at relative to the entire circumstances of the case. Now, there are different approaches to this whole saga of a conflict of interest. There have been several approaches, and some of these approaches will look, first, some of them look at the possibility of the existence of the conflict of interest itself. Others look to the actual existence of the conflict of interest in order to resolve the matter. Yet, the best approach, to me, has always been the third-party bystander, looking at the entire circumstances, whether that person can reasonably say that there is a possibility of a conflict of interest.
So would you, Justice Abdullah, say, just to be on safer grounds, offload your shares in the company so you can just have a peace of mind? In fact, I've heard Muntaka say, write to the speaker, let the speaker know what is it that you're doing, the fact that you are a managing partner of this firm, so that, you know, the whole thing will look a bit more kosher. I don't know where you stand on this briefly. Do you think that's what he should do based on the explanation and the, the education he was just giving us?
Well, I think it will not be as simple as that.
Right.
Indeed, the biggest solution to conflict of interest, wherever it arises, is full disclosure. And so it is easier for anyone to propound a theory on full disclosures to say that, well, because he has fully disclosed his interest, then that's the end of it. There are times that doesn't really resolve the matters, despite the fact of fully disclosing your interest in it. So there are times that you need to go beyond fully disclosing to actually taking steps that would avoid, or at least ensure that no right-thinking person looking at the entire circumstances would even think of any possibility of conflict arising. And those steps are the steps that I would recommend be taken, not necessarily just divesting his shares in the law firm. That would not be sufficient. Because even if he divests his interest in the law firm, the fact that the law firm is the one defendant persons that are before him, and would raise that issue of conflict of interest.
Also in the news tonight, University Teachers Association of Ghana threatened to embark on a strike in all public universities if government fails to address the worsening conditions of service. It's always brought to you by Delta Paper, producers of floral disposable tissue. I want to thank you very much for watching. I hope you had a great time. My name is Mora Aldu. Once again, thanks for watching. The news never sleeps. Have a good night.